Hello and welcome to today's customer experience webinar brought to you by QPC Australia and Glider. Just before we get started, thanks to everyone who's joined, but if you do have any questions throughout the session, please pop them in the chat and we're going to do a Q&A session at the end where we can handle those. In today's fast-paced business landscape, it's really important to create exceptional customer experiences, and it's more vital than ever. So we're thrilled to have you join us today for this insightful webinar, where we're going to explore the strategies, insights, and some best practices that can help your organization stand out, specifically focusing on things like PCI and financial compliance. Now, customer experience isn't just a buzzword. For those of you who've worked with QPC Australia for a long time, you know it's fundamental and a key building block for what we strive towards continuously. And it's the cornerstone of building lasting relationships with your customers and driving sustainable growth. As customers are becoming more technology savvy and risk averse, it's increasingly obvious that they'll treat personal information and the security of it as one of, if not the highest priority. So today what we're going to do is delve into the world of customer security, unveiling some of the secrets behind crafting memorable customer experiences, building trust and driving brand loyalty. I'm joined today by Shaun Dobbin, who is the CEO of Glider, and he's going to be discussing a variety of topics throughout this session. We're going to start off shortly by diving straight into actually talking about and showing you how Glider fits into the world of contact centers and beyond. We then obviously need to consider some of the problems that Glider is here to solve by walking through some of the issues that it tackles for organizations, and then acknowledging how much of a big deal customer experience is when dealing with billing or payment inquiries. Whilst we don't want to focus too much on the technical aspects today, we do appreciate that how complex a new technology is to integrate with your existing ecosystem can help or hinder its adoption. So we'll discuss the high-level integration process, project timelines, although noting that each project has its own scenarios to work through. Which payment provider are you working with? Those kind of things. And then Shaun is also going to walk us through some of the real-world examples, allowing us to explore in detail how Glider have successfully deployed their solutions, been able to provide tangible customer benefits, not only in the contact center, but as you'll see later, across the wider finance aspects such as accounts receivable. So without further ado, I think it's good for us to embark on this journey together as we explore the art and science of creating extraordinary customer experiences. Shaun, would you like to give us a brief introduction of yourself and a bit of background around Glider and just an overview of who Glider are and the history in this space, please?
Sure thing. Hey, it's great to be here, Gareth. Thanks for having me. Shaun Dobbin, I'm founder and CEO of Glider. I've been working in digital for the best part of 15 years and working with many of Australia's largest brands to create experiences, particularly for what was, back then, mobile consumers or increasingly mobile consumers, and building the first of, a range of innovative products that would engage with consumers across new mediums and allowing businesses to adapt their strategies to better, align with those expectations from consumers. And so Glider is a business that was born out of some of those experiences and where we were seeing challenges. One in particular was with a large retail utility that energy retailer that was seeing issues in their contact center. Funnily enough, it wasn't actually the inbounds of the contact center, but it was their collection strategies that was driving some of these challenges. And so that's kind of where we started looking into this space. And if it was just to set the scene somewhat, there's a way that, I relate to this, and I'm sure everyone that's watching today could. You call into a contact center, and we've all had that time when you've called in, whether it's your insurer or a particular gripe of mine's my pizza shop on a Friday night, but you call in and you're placing your order or whatnot, and then all of a sudden they ask you can you just read out your credit card details, right? Like, it doesn't feel right, whether it's a large national brand, and I've had many of them in retail and across all sorts that still seem to do it today, all the way through to Joe's pizza shop on the corner. But when you look at what's happening in the market today, and you only have to look back as far as probably last weekend's paper, you've got I guess these data breaches that are increasingly common too, right? So things like the Optus one is a good example. Medibank, they seem to be more frequent, and they're obviously really damaging. The one in particular that comes to mind is a group called Pareto Phone that were collecting on behalf of a bunch of charities. And so I think it was last week's paper where about 50,000 consumers, Australian consumers, had their data exposed and found on the dark web. So you've got obviously this awareness of a consumer that's starting to be, concerned about where their data is being shared and stored and how it's being handled. And then this is also, I guess, adapting against expectations where you've got places like Uber that are, really lifting the game in terms of that customer experience. And so regardless of what industry you're in, your customers are being trained by these great digital experiences. And so as a modern business, you've got to evolve and you've got to adapt and you've got to be able to meet those expectations. And, I also look at things like probably 5 or 10 years ago, it was called a call center, right? Today, it's called a contact center. And that's because, as an example, it's not just people calling in anymore. The business has to engage across the channels that the consumer wants to, right? So whether that's web chat or some social, there's expectations about particularly a younger demographic where they're less prone to want to pick up the phone and talk to someone. And so providing the right technology and addressing those security challenges, is super important. And I like the saying that, CX is the new battleground, right? Like there's a report that comes to mind, some research sponsored by Amazon, but on Forbes, where suggesting 86% of customers surveyed are willing to switch brands or companies because of a bad customer experience, right? And so whether it's an acquisition play or, I believe over the next kind of 10 years, it's going to be more retention based on, the economic environment we're in. And it's important to look after the customers you've got. And so that's why we created Glider, right? So it's a modern platform. It's integrated with the Genesys Cloud and can be rapidly deployed to address some of these security challenges, improve operational efficiencies, but importantly, deliver that best customer experience for those modern consumers, providing a range of flexibility in the way that they want to engage. And so, we're a venture-backed business. We're lucky enough to be supported by some of Australia's leading VCs, and we're very focused on what we call supercharging that bill payment experiences for enterprises and their customers.
Thanks for that, Shaun. Really appreciate it. So Glider, obviously, they're a certified Genesys partner, aren't they, through the App Foundry, with a lot of experience focused on this PCI and this secure space. But I think it's important to understand as well, as you've just mentioned there, Shaun, that it's not just across the voice channel, it's across the digital channels as well. It's trying to make sure that you can provide a safe and secure platform for everybody, regardless of the method that customers are communicating with the organisation with. Now, I'm a very visual person, Shaun, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this will be as well. It'd be great if you can show us what Glider Pay looks like. Is there something that you can show?
Yep. I'm going to just share my screen now. I've got a bit of a product demo video here that I'm going to talk to. So we integrated with the Genesys Cloud to help enterprise organizations offer the best payment experience for their customers. And so whether that's through a phone call, a chat, an email, SMS, together with Genesys, we're able to offer a really simple, fast, and intuitive way for their customers to make a payment. And so what you're looking at here is an example of a customer on the right calling into the contact center to make a payment, right? And so in this instance here, you can see that on the left-hand side, the agent's view, so the Genesys console, the agent simply clicks on the Glider widget. It opens the interface and they can add the customer details. And then basically all they need to do is hit send, whether that's an email or an SMS. In this instance, we're showing the SMS embedded link, which appears on the consumer's device. They click on that and they're opening what we call this smart bill. So the smart bills a fully personalized payment portal where they've got a range of options to pay, whether it's Google Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal, credit card, debit card, and soon to come Pay2. It provides a range of flexibility and highly configurable kind of way to allow us to create this personalized experience. You can see on the left there also that the agent's able to have full visibility of where they're up to in that process. So unlike where you might take a call and an IVR comes through and you might offload someone, and there's a bit of a black box there, we've got full transparency of that process and where it's up to. And also if a customer is having a challenge, you can help them, and stay on the call. And so there's a better experience there as well, because who wants to be offloaded to some bot or, an IVR or, machine when you're already talking to someone? So, and then I'm just going to keep going along here because, again, one of the strengths of this solution is we can seamlessly adapt to the channel. So whether it's an over-the-phone call or, if we've got live web chat set up, obviously the agent's able to facilitate that workflow and handle those inquiries regardless of, the channels that are coming in. So similar experience from the agent, and also, as you can see there, a very similar experience for the consumer as well.
So it's a really powerful solution that you can see integrates very well seamlessly with Genesys Cloud. It has very similar styling and look and feel, so it feels like it's just an all-in-one solution, which is a nice experience there as well, and allows you to offer that agent assisted, which I think you touched on it there, Shaun, that from a customer experience perspective, if I've contacted the contact center, it's really important for me to feel like I'm able to deal and have my questions resolved very quickly, very easily, but very effectively. And being able to have that support from the agent through the payment process, making sure that I'm entering the right information, but without sharing those details with the agent, really does allow me to build up that confidence. So, I think that's a great little showcase there of it. I guess a key question now, though, is, so how does Glider bring it all together to kind of fit it into the contact center environment? And what are some of the common problems that Glider Pay can solve?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you touched on that agent-assisted capability, we offer a multi-channel but also multi-purpose solution. And so what I mean by that is when customers call in, they're going to have different inquiries. Some of them might be, facing hardship as an example. And so we might be able to seamlessly create a workflow here where we offer a payment arrangement and we're able to deal with that on the spot. So again, just a different way where we can provide that instant resolution. But, we've also got, and I'm actually excited to announce today that we've got a, beyond the agent assist, self-serve capability, right? So powered by the Genesys AI engine, our bill payments bot, it can support both voice and web chat experiences. So opening up that automated 24/7 instant resolution type environment beyond the agent assist, but very similar kind of experiences to what I just showed you as well. So that and then, we also see value in some of those payment methods, right? So whether it's a sales environment, you're trying to make a sale, but also through to the customer support type inquiries, things like PayPal wallet, and whether it's PayPal Pay in 4, you've got a range of methods or strategies here that we can bring through that organization that just really opens up a whole bunch of flexibility in the way that we are positioning this and providing that experience for the customer. Sorry, go on, Gareth.
I was just going to say, in terms of the flexibility that you provide, I guess one question that comes to mind is, does that add complexity in terms of how you integrate with a payment provider, or what does an actual implementation model look like?
Right. Yep. So obviously, so this is available within the App Foundry marketplace. So, but if you're just installing the App Foundry widget, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's largely just adding our application and installing it. It's a matter of a few clicks, really, right? But ultimately, what we are about as a business is embedding into existing technology stacks, right? So Glider is essentially a bolt-on and provides that seamless customer experience layer. But whether it's your existing payment gateway, and we support a range of the leading gateways out of the box. So the likes of BPoint or Braintree, Westpac, etc. Ultimately, what we're about is just making like the payment experience for the consumer, the actual experience of getting up and running with Glider easy as well, right? So it's really super quick and easy. Time to set up can be literally up in a matter of days. All we really need is your merchant ID and we provide an API key to sort of get those connections working. But the solution's highly configurable, so that payment portal that you saw today can be set up, understanding that each business is unique and going to be needing, different forms or requirements. That's highly configurable based on those requirements. And lastly, I think, but importantly, this is a full white label solution. So that experience from a consumer, if that's their customer, then they just want to have a seamless experience all the way through. And so whilst Glider's providing all this capability, we operate quietly in the background. And so the branding's fully, it's fully white labeled. You don't see Glider anywhere. We're able to easily customize and personalize some of that messaging that the consumer is going to see on the fly. And the other part to it, we see this, what we call them trust signals, right? Like having the right message, the communication, the experience is super important from a customer's perspective. So whether that's things like, a branded URL, even just having the PayPal wallet, like we see that as a really good trust signal, because if you speak to anyone, they'll say if PayPal wallet's there, I'd choose that as the way to pay every time. And so, we've thought really deeply around what it is that consumers need or are looking for when they want to feel confident or comfortable in making those payments as well.
I think that's an important point, really, to understand a couple of things there. Brand loyalty. We talk about this, and the fact that you can white label it and ensure that you're providing the right messaging, so customers understand that and feel safe and trusting that it's from a trusted source. It's really important to kind of take that forward. And I think it's been really good to hear some of the reasons why Glider Pay should be chosen as a solution, some of the benefits it's obviously able to bring to an organization, and being able to implement it quickly and effectively to essentially action change within an organization and ensure that compliance. I know you've highlighted a couple of examples very quickly, but can you talk us through maybe some real world examples where Glider Pay has been implemented and the specific use cases that you work towards, and then obviously any values that were identified by those customers?
Yep, sure. So, I think, just going on from your point there on that, some of those PCI challenges. So one example that comes to mind, a water utility, it's a pretty heavily regulated environment, and compliance is super important to them. They were operating a pause and resume type solution, and ultimately, whilst those solutions technically work really well, some complexities no doubt in setting them up, but ultimately humans make errors, right? And so what was happening for them was sometimes those agents were forgetting to pause the actual calls whilst they were taking those card details over the phone. And so for, a matter of 24, 48 hours, however long it took to get someone on site to remove those details from their servers, they were non-compliant. And so that was when they reached out to Glider to help them solve that. And so how we started working with them was we ran a small POC with their credit team. And, to their words, their credit team are the hardest markers in terms of, we're talking about not just customer experience, but also employee experience, right? So they need to be able to operate these solutions as well and making their jobs easier. And so we ran that for a couple of months, and it tested really well from their perspective, but also from the customer's perspective. And so, they've got a range of demographics from young to much older as well. And so they were able to test, is this something that each of those types of customer were comfortable in sort of using this solution. And overwhelmingly, it was a really positive response. And so they then rolled this out to their team of over 100 agents. And some of the other, I guess, value points there that maybe weren't even expected, when we first started working, we wanted to sort of solve that PCI compliance issue, but there was also some, I guess, inefficiencies in the way their team was working. So this was around the start of when, COVID hit, and all of a sudden they had to start mobilizing their work from home strategy. And so they call it new ways of working. And what was happening was there was only, a select amount of agents that could facilitate these payment calls, whereas once they implemented Glider, whether they were working from home, it didn't matter. Ultimately, they were all able to start taking these and resolving these calls. So there were other benefits in that organisation, as I said, that weren't really the ones targeted up front, but certainly has been able to create some efficiencies. And there's a bunch of businesses we talk to where they might be operating a contact center in the Philippines or whatnot, and this is something where firstly, that sensitive information will never leave Australian kind of shores, and but also we can be sure that that because that card information's never spoken, or whether it's a clean room that operating or however they've got it set up, at no point is there any chance of that card information being lost, stolen, unexpectedly stored somewhere, because mistakes happen as well. And so one other one that I guess expands on that, we work with a federal government agency, and so they operate I think it's around 80 offices globally, and they first worked with Glider actually to and they needed to stand a solution up really quickly. This was again sort of at the start of COVID, and what they were using Glider for in that instance was to facilitate payments for organising chartered flights to repatriate Australians. But with the success of that, they've now integrated via our API into their contact center, so that it's an embedded solution. But the efficiencies they've been able to realise mean that if an Australian citizen overseas, for example, might lose their passport, chances are they've lost their phone as well. But there's flexibility in the way that the solution could be used to request payment, right? And so even reflecting on that older demographic question, right? So, if you wanted to send my mum as a good example, send me the SMS to make the payment because she doesn't know how to, then you can do that, right? And so it just gives a huge amount of flexibility. But one of the benefits for this agency was that we could centralize all the payments into a single gateway or merchant facility that was Australian based. We didn't have to have a local bank account in every country. We didn't need physical payment devices in any location either. And so there was just a huge amount of efficiencies and flexibility that it was able to open up for that business.
Thanks, Shaun. I really appreciate that. And I want to loop back on one of the points that you just mentioned, because obviously we talk a lot about the customer experience and the fact that, if I contact an organization, I expect my data to be held securely. But I don't know where that person is actually located. They might be working in an office, and it's very it's much easier to control what happens within a centralized location. But as soon as you start talking about remote working, which obviously COVID forced a lot of organizations to adapt very quickly and change very quickly, but weren't necessarily set up for it, the risk factor there increases as people start writing down these credit card numbers at home, and you're reliant on the fact that you have to have an element of trust there. You have to assume that the agent has got rid of that information, but it's never going to have been got rid of securely. So the fact that you can offer this service, and it supports the remote workers and ensures that regardless of where the agents are located and what payments they're facilitating, you're essentially making sure that it's always kept secure and compliant. So it de-risks for organizations, doesn't it, the impact or potential impact of anything along those lines. Okay, so I think just moving on, obviously this session has been heavily focused on what Glider and through Glider Pay within the contact center, what it can bring to enhance the customer experience. But I do know that Glider obviously offer more services to a wider audience than just the contact center. So maybe you can just give us a little bit of more detail around what are the services Glider can provide.
Yeah, sure. So Glider is an API first platform. And so we've got a universal API that can extend throughout the organization and across any touch point. And, it's I think a really powerful solution that can allow businesses to efficiently address some of the whether it's a gap today, but also just providing a better CX across all those touch points. And so, we talk about enabling supercharged bill payment experiences across any touch point. And we think about, these critical moments that matter when you're trying to communicate with someone about a bill payment, right? And so I relate it back to in an e-commerce environment, we would all be aware that, sophisticated retailers appreciate that at that checkout experience, fractions of a second can mean the difference between a sale and an abandoned cart. And so what we're looking at is how we can optimize those those moments that matter across that bill payment experience, because again, we can all relate to that bill that you've received that might end up on the fridge or, in your inbox, lost in your inbox, and you don't pay it because it's just not easy to do. And so, whether it's a contact center bill payment to in-store, but also that, that automated receivables piece, our highly configurable platform can optimize that experience. And, driven by data, we're looking at how we can talk to or reach out and communicate in the best way at the right moment, on the right channel, on the right device to optimize and obviously accelerate, ultimately bringing forward some of these revenues that when every day a bill's outstanding, it's expensive for an enterprise. And so then, we couple that with, we think about this customer payment journey. So for example, when a bill becomes due all the way through to, when it gets into a contingency environment, payment plans and whatnot, but also, right through to debt collections where you might be offering sensitive discount, time-sensitive discounts, and, there's strategies that can be adapted based on those needs.
I think that's fantastic because obviously these days there's a lot of organizations who are looking for the most cost-effective solutions as well, whilst matching the security requirements that they may have. And being able to provide a single solution that can fit multiple needs and multiple use cases really adds value to it. Coupled with the fact it's obviously going to reduce the technology stack, you're not having multiple solutions in there, essentially doing the same thing. So that's really good, really like that. Thanks for that, Shaun. So that's kind of brought us to the end of the presentation content that we have. We do have a few minutes before we wrap up this session to answer any questions that anybody may have. Whilst we wait and see if anybody in the audience decides to throw some questions at us, we did receive a couple of questions prior to this session, so maybe we can just quickly run through those. The first one was around older demographics, and I know you touched on it briefly there, Shaun, but what kind of challenges need to be overcome? Obviously, we're talking about sending out links to payment gateways through mobile devices, and a lot of our customers do offer payment services, but they've been kind of put off offering more complex services essentially because it's they service an older demographic. So what kind of tips can you offer?
Yeah, I think firstly, we've obviously got some experience working with businesses that are servicing those older demographic, and we've had some great feedback, and ultimately success in the way that they're engaging. And I'd also I guess reference one of our strategic partners is PayPal, and they've got this e-commerce index that they release each year, and one of the stats in there is that 67% of Australians are making an online bill payment, but a similar number, the boomer generation, are also happy to make payments in that digital environment. And I think with each year that goes past, obviously, the number of people that are not able to make payments is decreasing pretty quickly. So with that, obviously one of the strengths of our solution is that, in that demo that I showed you, you've got the ability to stay on the call, right? Like if you're offloading someone into a black box environment, 60% of those might be successful, but you don't know what happens once they go there. And so you've got the ability to stay on that call, talk someone through it, give them the instruction they might need. But also, as I said, you get that transparency and feedback, so you can see the stage of the process they're up to in real time. And so that's really helpful. And then we also see, as I mentioned before, there's some flexibility. If they're not comfortable, you don't have to make that payment right away, but you could go, look, send it to your son, or and so what's his mobile number? And again, just ranges of solutions here that allow us to overcome some of those specific, and unique, because let's face it, everyone's going to have somewhat of a different kind of setup at home or whatnot, but allowing you to adapt. They might not have a smartphone. It's like, well, what's your email? So on the fly, we can send it to an email, and that they'll be on their laptop and able to talk through at the same time there. So yeah, look, as I said, we're seeing some really good uplift and take up in that demographic, but it is a common question that we're seeing as well.
Perfect, thank you. Next one, always a tricky one to answer this one, but what's the pricing model for Glider Pay?
Yeah, look, I think it's a real strength of the solution, because I mentioned we can get up and running in a couple of days, and some of those legacy or alternative type IVR solutions, etc. Like, we've got essentially no capex. So again, we understand in this economic environment where there's some constraints in enterprises, capex is a challenge. We can be up and running really quickly. So Glide is a usage-based model. And so ultimately there's a small platform fee that you pay each month, but it's a tiered-based pricing based on the volume of payment requests made in that month. And so, we would be able to look at the expected number of transactions or data that's been historically in the business and create a tier that would align against that. And so, it's aligned against the value you're getting, right? There's no locked-in commitment and minimum spend, and we don't look at things like, how many agent seats there are and that type, and have a subscription or a fixed fee. So again, there's flexibility in the way that can be tested, small tests, use cases, and roll it out. And in every case that we've worked with a customer, they've started narrow, but they've expanded, and most of the time that usage has in some instances dramatically increased as they roll it into other parts of the business too.
Thank you, appreciate that. Final question I think I'm going to ask for the time being is, obviously, you mentioned it at the start, there's been more data and security breaches recently, which is leading to changes and tightening of regulations around PCI. We've seen that, for example, PCI DSS 4.0 is now the new industry standard, which obviously presents challenges for organizations to ensure that the platforms that they use support these new regulations. So how does Glider stay abreast of and obviously support changes in regulations within the platform?
Yeah, good question. So firstly, we're a business that's focused on reducing security risk for enterprises. And so we obviously will take security very seriously on our side too. And so we've got some rigorous processes in place. And we also work really closely with strategic partners, the likes of PayPal and others in that space, to make sure that we're all sharing and, making sure that we're up to speed. And I think the other part to that too is, we've purposely architected our platform to leverage some of those big, gateways' own security protocols. And so at no point actually do we as a platform ever see, hear, or store any of that sensitive card information that we are handling and enabling payments. So the way that we integrate into those payment gateways means that we can do that in a way that descopes us from that. So we only have, sometimes, it might be a mobile number or, really, really kind of minimal amount of customer data on our platform to, again, reduce some of those links of potential areas where those things might go awry. Now, in terms of PCI DSS, we're obviously compliant for the existing 3.2.1 protocol, and we are expecting, through working with one of our security partners, through an automated process, ensure that our security posture is aligned and we are compliant for 4.0 in early 2024. But yeah, look, it's super important, and I think businesses are, prioritizing this. The PCI compliance is something that I have seen a level of, I wouldn't call it laziness, but there's a lot of other priorities in a business, but it's becoming a priority, right? And I think it needs to. And I think the looking into your PCI compliance and strategy around how you can reduce your scope, reduce areas of scope, strategies for making it, it's super expensive to be compliant. And so we have those conversations with our customers as well.
Brilliant. Well, I don't think we've got any other questions there, Shaun. So I think just to conclude now, obviously we've just scratched the surface today of some of the use cases to support customers wanting to offer agent-assisted payments or maintain regulatory compliance, and obviously ensuring that customers are provided with peace of mind that their critical personal information is being handled safely and securely. Glider Pay as a solution, we've seen, can be effortlessly integrated with the Genesys Cloud CX contact center solution, tying it into the payment gateway of your choice and offering payment services through voice and digital channels through a truly secure 24/7 service. I'd like to extend my thanks to Shaun today for taking us on this journey. It's been hopefully an insightful and interesting journey for everyone who's watching this. We are recording this webinar and it will be shared for reference. But if there's any follow-up questions, or if anybody would like a deep dive or discussion on the use cases specific to their own environment, feel free to reach out through QPC Australia, through your account executives, or contact us directly. Thanks very much.